Chapter 151 Buried Instincts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Meanwhile Max, I want to talk to my friends about this first, Max said, making his intentions clear to Kremeth. The old turtle did not understand why Max needed to consult his friends about such an important decision of his life, but regardless of his personal feelings, he decided to just roll with Max's wish and respect his decision, as he did not want to tutor a disciple forcefully. Using his powers, Kremeth began quickly scanning the forest for Max's friends as he searched for about 5 full minutes before a small frown formed on his face. "I'm sorry, little one, but 2 of your 3 friends are dead and one looks like he will soon be dead. They have been ambushed by a demon, it seems. Only the dwarf survives for now," Kremeth said as Max's heart dropped inside his chest. "Dead?" Max asked as a whirlpool of emotional fury rose up inside him, as the white pupils around his red iris began to turn slightly red with Max baring his fangs in a threatening rage. "Dead," Kremeth said as he calmly observed the changes inside Max's body, realizing that Max, although being a primordial vampire, had many of his innate fierceness buried deep inside his consciousness. This bloodthirsty form of rare pupils and bared fangs was how Kremeth remembered the savage primordial vampires from the ancient times, who were impossible to talk to unless they respected your strength enough to let you speak. Max's temperament was more like those of the civil modern vampires than that of the savage primordial vampires, as if he was not born a savage primordial vampire but transformed into one at an older age. "I can take you to your 3rd friend, most likely in time for you to save him if you want. But, in return I want you to follow my advice on how to take the fight to your opponent. Do you agree?" Kremeth asked as he observed Max struggle in repressing his anger. "Okay," Max replied as Kremeth nodded and asked him to mount his shell once more, as with a sudden whiplash the 2 were gone from the cave once again. Rhea saw and heard everything. To her the simple matters of the mortals were simply beneath herself, as all she cared about at the moment was to see her baby hatch safely. The hatching day was growing near. She could feel the little one stir inside the shell, slowly trying to break free, as it was only a matter of time now before it happened. Meanwhile Rudra, reporting to the Supreme Commander, there has been no official response issued by the Thunder Nation condemning Earth. They have not even managed to put out a hit marker on any space pirate organization for the surprise attack. Our understanding is that they don't yet know who exactly was behind the attacks, which gives us a free pass for the time being," an Earthling said as he reported to Rudra. Rudra fiddled with his hair as he wrecked his brain on what the next move should be. He had hoped that the Thunder Nation would single him out and blacklist him after the attack, especially since one of the ships had turned away and the god inside had seen his face. But apparently the god had refused to testify against Rudra in fear, which meant that there was no official target placed on his head yet. Had Rudra been blacklisted, it would be easier for him to get the Earthlings to evacuate Earth and settle on Radiance under the pretext of military evacuation, but the stupid Thunder Nation displayed its impotence and ruined his plans. "Send someone to call for our chief blacksmith, please," Rudra said, as he summoned the chief blacksmith of Earth, the only man beside him having the full copy of how to create the destroyer-class battleships Earth prided itself on, and the man who Rudra considered to be his close friend, Fatty Kalash. Fatty arrived before Rudra, covered in grease and with mechanical tools hanging all over his body, as even from 20 feet away the scent of his sweat mixed with machine oil repulsed Rudra. "Jesus Christ, mate, bath at least once a week," Rudra said, pinching his nose as he tried to pull his friend's leg. "I would, if you did not overwhelm me with more work every time I'm done with a project," Fatty said, lashing straight back at Rudra. Both friends grinned, as Fatty was one of the only people on Earth whose attitude towards Rudra did not change after his rise to a god. For him, Rudra was the same guy who he went to school with all those years ago. "You called?" Fatty asked as he stopped smiling and turned serious. Rudra nodded his head and signaled for everyone else to leave the room, as only after secrecy was guaranteed did he talk with Fatty. "Did you corrupt the control equipment shipment?" Rudra asked Fatty, who nodded in reply. While to the rest of the Earth it seemed like Rudra had only targeted the merchant ships of the Thunder Nation up till now, in reality that was not the case at all. Rudra only trusted 2 men with his secrets, his friends Karna and Fatty Kalash, and he entrusted 2 secret missions to both of them. To Fatty Kalash, he asked to create a device that looked exactly like a control equipment panel used in frigate and destroyer-class ships. However, in reality it was a detonation bomb. Rudra had began corrupting the Thunder Nation fleet, getting his decoy control chips mixed amongst a shipment headed for Thunder Nation as maintenance and repair equipment. When the time would come, Rudra would detonate these chips to render the Thunder Nation fleet useless. For Rudra the war had already long but started, it was just the other party who was unaware of it up till now. /////A/N. Chapter number. For the day. Enjoy you all, /////. Chapter 152 A Cowardly Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kremeth brought Max about 50 meters away from where Asmodeus and Sebastian were as he let him off his back but refused to let him jump into the fight just yet. The 2 of them were behind a tree trunk, away from Sebastian and Asmodeus's view as Kremeth deliberately chose this spot to train Max. You promised to listen to my guidance in this fight, so now calm your raging blood and start thinking like a coward. Kremeth said as he placed his turtle hand over Max's shoulder, making it impossible for Max to move a muscle under his power and grip. What does that even mean? Max asked, sounding a little irritated and impatient. Peeking from behind the tree trunk, Max could see how Asmodeus had tied Sebastian up against a log and was torturing him, and the scene caused uncontrollable rage to bubble inside him as he felt like rushing into battle right this second, no matter the consequences. Rule 1 of fighting like a coward is to never fight if you don't have to. You have a proxy skill, just summon your hounds and let them rush into battle before yourself. Kremeth suggested as Max immediately summoned his 25 nether beasts and sent them to Sebastian's defense. The nether beasts immediately rushed to Sebastian's aid as Asmodeus immediately became on guard against facing a possible enemy. The beasts jumped and leaped at Asmodeus, trying to bite his limbs and bury their claws into his flesh as their sheer number made it difficult for Asmodeus to fight back. Raven! Sebastian shouted as he immediately recognized his friend's hounds. Sebastian tried to frantically look around, turning his neck in all directions in the search for his friend's face, but he could not find him for some reason. Eventually Asmodeus managed to start fighting the hounds to a stalemate as picking Max's name from Sebastian's call, he said, so the hound had decided to attack me with a pack of hounds. How original. Asmodeus tried to look around, searching for Max, but even he failed to locate him. Step 2 is to use long-range attacks. Use your Agni Astra and engage with him at a distance. Don't reveal your exact position if you don't have to and keep moving around, Kremeth said as he let Max go. Max listened to Kremeth's advice and circled behind Asmodeus's back while he was busy shaking off the hounds as upon seeing an opening he used the Fireblast spell to attack his exposed back. 1200. Lucifer have mercy, shouted Asmodeus as he angrily turned towards the direction the attack came from, again to find nobody as the hounds took advantage of the opening and landed 2 bites on his leg muscles. 300.300. Damn it. Asmodeus turned once more but he could no longer focus on fully fighting the hounds anymore as he tried to scan his surroundings constantly for any signs of moving trees or enemy ambush. This worry led to him making mistakes while fighting the hounds as he began losing a lot of HP fast, with his internal injuries not helping his cause at all. Fireblast. 1339. Max managed to sneak a second shot onto Asmodeus's back after scaling a tree and using height to attack Asmodeus from his blind spot. Somehow Max had not even shown himself in the battle yet and still managed to shave off 70% of Asmodeus's HP bar. Stop fighting like a coward and show yourself, damn it. Asmodeus shouted in anger and dismay but it was to no avail. Max had already decided to go in for the kill, as he used sword intent combined with wind slash to send a powerful slash towards Asmodeus who barely reacted in time to block it. Fireblast. By blocking Max's sword attack, Asmodeus was in no position to block the subsequent fireblast as it landed fair and square on his chest causing 1500 damage and sending Asmodeus back outside the dungeon. Asmodeus's death caused all of his gathered loot to be spread across the floor, as the only time Asmodeus managed to catch a glimpse of Max throughout the battle was 1 second before he died. The terrifying fear that he felt in his heart when he realized he was probably going to die made him almost pee his pants, because he knew exactly how failing captains were treated by the Dark Faction seniors. Asmodeus knew that a grim fate awaited him outside, one much worse than the torture done by the Soulmancer priest, which is why his death against Max inside the dungeon felt like a worse fate than dying for real, as at least then the suffering would be over forever. "Raven, you came," Sebastian said as Max rushed up to free his friend. His face covered in cloth, looking nothing like his usual concealer mask, however, with the same unmistakable blood-red eyes, Sebastian knew it could only be his good friend. "Anna and Asiva, they. Sebastian wanted to say they died because of his mistake, however, Max just hugged Sebastian tight to let him know it was not his fault. When Max saw Sebastian's old body torturing Sebastian, he did feel a little odd, but knowing the full history, he had no sympathy for the demon who had terrorized Sebastian in the past. In either case, Max was never going to show anyone who harmed Asiva a shred of mercy. But today, fighting like a coward and achieving such great results, Max started to realize that he needed to spend more time with the turtle hermit for sure. If he can master the art of fighting like a true coward, he could become a much superior and versatile fighter overall. /////A/N. Bonus Chapter 4 out of 4 for the day. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's bonus series. Once again, a big thank you to everyone for the support you have shown to this novel in this last month. We are slowly but surely closing the gap between ourselves and number 10 on the GT rankings. Let's go get it. Chapter 153, Sebastian's Decisivenes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rhea watched over her egg tenderly as small cracks started to form all over it. The little one inside was struggling to get out, and now it was only a matter of a few hours before it hatched completely. For a dragon, the hatching phase was the most difficult phase of their lives, because the shell of a dragon egg was much stronger than what any Tier 0 level 0 creature could ever hope to break. The reason why the dragon shell was so strong was because the struggle to break the egg and be set free was extremely helpful in developing survival instincts and strength in baby dragons, who leveled up through the effort. However, while not likely 1 in 1,000 dragon babies who did not manage to break free of their eggs, died without ever being born. Rhea had sacrificed everything for the sake of her baby. She had given up a large chunk of her divinity and a lot of her powers to nurture the baby before it was ever born, going against the rules of the universe to smoothen out the fetus's mana veins so that it was born with the mana regeneration capacity of an immortal while being a Tier 0 mortal. At her peak, she was a terrifying Tier 8 queen of the Black Dragon clan. However, for the sake of her husband the Golden Dragon King and the future of dragonkind as a whole, she decided to nurture her baby to be born as a supreme existence. The whole universe was after her baby, while nobody except her maid Nancy knew that she had nurtured the egg with divine essence. The idea of the Dragon King and Dragon Queen coming together to have a baby was terrifying in of itself for the other clans such as Red, White and Yellow. With only this information, the other clans were constantly monitoring her pregnancy and making attempts at the life of her baby. However, if they ever found out about its true prowess, Rhea had no doubt there would be an all-out war. Her baby would transcend the Tier 8 realm and become one of the Supremes in the future, and with that he would unite all of dragonkind under one single monarchy. It was for this dream that Rhea had sacrificed her powers, and it was for this very dream that she would go to any lengths to ensure that her baby lived to fulfill its full potential. Meanwhile, Kremeth, Max and Sebastian. "Meet my master, Kremeth the old turtle coward," Max said as he introduced the old turtle to Sebastian. Sebastian looked at the 6-feet-tall turtle with awe as he bowed politely and said, "This dwarf greets the turtle hermit." "Good lad," Kremeth said as he patted Sebastian on the head. "Let's go now, boy. I cannot stay far away from the cave for too long. I have another one to protect," Kremeth said as he signaled Max to climb onto its back. "I'll see you around, Sebastian. I've decided to follow the turtle as my master and learn the ways of the coward with him." I don't think I'll be leaving this dungeon for a while even if it becomes a battle zone. On your way out can you please give Asiva, Anna, and my brother the message that I'm staying here. I don't really want them to worry too much, Max said as he brought his hand out for Sebastian to shake. Sebastian was a little shocked to hear that Max planned on staying inside the dungeon to learn with Kremeth for the next 2.5 years. However, if there was one thing about Max that he really admired it was his judgment, and since Max had judged Kremeth to be worth staying inside this dungeon for the next 2.5 years, his instincts told him that it must be worth it. Can I follow your master as well? Sebastian asked as he looked into Kremeth's eyes with a hopeful expression. I'm sorry lad, I'm not into the schooling business, I owe a debt which I need to settle, that's the only reason I'm tutoring the vampire, otherwise I'm not really interested. Kremeth said as Sebastian decisively got down to his knees and begged for a chance. The greatest pride for a warrior is to nurture a stronger warrior in the next generation. Since Raven has chosen you as his master, I'm sure you are an extremely accomplished individual in front of whom I'm nothing but an ant. But I beg you to give me a chance to learn from you, because I will bring honor and glory to your name. It's the might of the student that displays the greatness of the teacher, and believe me I will do everything in my power to learn everything you have to teach me. If you give me this chance, I'm ready to cook, clean and do all the menial tasks you need me to do, but I beg you, give me this chance. Kremeth smiled. He had lived a long time and had gotten many proposals by talented and powerful individuals to be their master, however, never did he have one from a hopeless race like that of a dwarf. You are short, your hands are built to lift hammers and not swords, your hip muscles don't have much mobility to allow you to kick upwards of 15 degrees in battle, and you have no racial abilities useful to be a warrior. In a fair fistfight you can never beat an opponent of a superior race. However, all your disabilities make you the perfect warrior to follow the path of the coward. I'm intrigued by how high a dwarf can reach with my teachings, so I'll give you a chance. But it will come at a price, as I will need you to work to the bone with housework when you are not training. Disobey me and I'll kill you, don't train like I tell you to, I kill you, if you piss me off, I still kill you. If you accept these conditions climb on my back, if you don't this is goodbye. You have 5 seconds to choose. Kremeth said as Sebastian hurried to climb onto its back without hesitation. He had made an instinctive decision to follow Max to learn from the turtle today, because according to him he had already hit the rock bottom in life today in his fight against Asmodeus, and he never wanted to feel so powerless in his life ever again, no matter the price. ///////n. It's Saturday and hence it's time for another riddle. This time around I'll give the first correct answer in the comments below a price as well. Q. What is the numerical limit for Max casting Fireball and Fireblast spells through the Agni Astra in one day? //////. Chapter 154 Exposed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian was just as awestruck as Max was when he inspected Kremeth's cave. Unlike Max, however, his mouth remained so wide open upon seeing the objects that saliva started to drip down on his feet. Can you please keep the filthy mortals away from my baby? I'll incinerate them if they infect my child. Rhea said as she complained to Kremeth about Max and Sebastian. Despite the complaints, the happiness under her voice was undeniable. The Dragon Queen was beyond elated at the moment as she patiently saw how the cracks in her egg got wider and wider. Come on little one, keep it up, Kremeth said as he cheered the little one up, hoping that at least one of its limbs could crack the egg apart and come out. Kaboom! Kremeth's cave trembled violently as a lightning strike seemingly hit its top, triggering the protection array set up by the old turtle. Divine retribution for childbirth. Just what did you do to your baby Queen Rhea? Kremeth asked in a worrying voice as a second lightning strike hit the cave. Kaboom! Rhea's expression instantly turned solemn. She knew exactly why there was a divine retribution for her newborn baby, but she could certainly not share its details. System notification. The laws of the universe have been tempered with by the Black Dragon Queen Rhea giving her child immortal mana veins and regeneration as immortal. A system quest will be generated to end the abomination before it ever takes birth. System quest. Kill the Black Dragon Queen's baby before it is born. Location: XXZYAS 2240293349 degree Ns Stasodkin 304857 W, time limit, 0.25 minutes BVEC, reward. Plus 100 levels worth of EXP, irrespective of tier. Everyone in the room got a system notification, as Sebastian looked blankly towards Max as he pointed towards the currently red dragon Rhea and said, Black Dragon Queen. Abomination baby. Sebastian wanted to cry, he had just got out of one big mess only to be put into another. Kremeth especially frowned seeing the system notification. He disliked the part about his cave's location being broadcast dungeon-wide with every dragon now out for the baby egg's blood. I need to run. Rhea said as she decisively decided that staying in this location any longer was akin to suicide. 100 levels irrespective of the tier were a lot. It was at least 50.100 years worth of leveling for tier 6 dragons and at least 1,000 years worth of leveling for tier 7 dragons. Even if the dragons would have no personal feud with her, they would not let such a chance go, not counting the other species who would feel no moral obligation in killing her baby. Damn the Universal Queen, Rhea cursed as never in her wildest dreams had she ever thought that in the last moments before her childbirth that such a tragedy would strike her. Kaboom! The cave trembled violently once more as Kremeth sighed in defeat. He knew exactly what kind of a price he would need to pay to keep the dragon kid alive. You can't run, little dragon, the divine retribution will incinerate your little one without the shield holding this house together, Kremeth said as he started to ruffle through a pile of mechanical tools placed in a remote corner of his cave from where he brought a small pocket-sized device. Roar, system notification. You have heard a tier 7 dragon's roar, all stats reduced by 50% plus you are paralyzed for 60 seconds. Max and Sebastian stood paralyzed on the spot just from the powerful roar that washed over them, as Max realized how hopelessly weak they were in this battle of giants. It's Jornumfar, the white dragon bitch, she won't let this chance to attack my baby slide. Rhea said as her eyes narrowed down. She recognized this voice from her childhood. The white dragon and she were both being groomed for the position of the dragon queen, but it was she who won in the end. Rhea was sure that Jornumfar was sour about that loss since ages, and now that she had a chance to get back even while also gaining a 100 levels in the process, she was going to fight tooth and nail to get it. Roar Rawi Weedrbzazayu, system notification, system notification, system notification. You have been paralyzed. One after another powerful dragon roars caused chain paralyzation for Max and Sebastian who were now as pale as a block of ice. 17 tier 6 dragons, 120 tier 5 dragons and 1 tier 7 dragon have assembled outside the cave. There were a few wyverns and an aerodactyl but they were mercilessly killed. Kremeth reported as Rhea felt a bead of sweat run down her dragon scales. She knew she could not fight against such a formidable force. There were still 23 minutes left until her baby would be born and its soul protected by the Universal Queen under the universal laws. However, she could not let it be killed before those 23 minutes were up. You promised to save my child, you are an elder and an experienced warrior. What is your plan? Rhea asked Kremeth as she knew that the old turtle was now her only hope to survive. Meanwhile Asiva, so Max actually survived the yellow dragon mother. Anna said as she checked the list of students who had been teleported back outside and was shocked to see that Max wasn't one of them. Damn it. The demon must be torturing poor Sebastian inside, Anna said, biting her lip as she felt anger and regret in being killed at the hands of the demon, leaving Sebastian to fend for himself. Don't worry about Sebastian, Max will save him, Asiva said with absolute confidence. How can you be sure? Anna asked doubtfully as she was not sure that Max even knew about Sebastian's peril. I'm sure, Asiva said, having unwavering faith in Max as a man. Anna was moved by Asiva's confidence as she balled her fists and nodded. Besides, we have problems of our own, Asiva said as she reminded Anna of all the fellow students they had killed inside the dungeon who were now out for their blood. Chapter 155 The facade is discarded. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You promised to save us. Rhea said as Kremeth cringed from the inside. Kremeth the coward was not a good guy, he did not do things out of kindness. Even with so many dragons circling his house, if he wanted to, he could easily escape without being injured. After all, it was not him that the dragons were after, but it was the damned soul oath that he took before the previous dragon queen that was compelling to save the mother and child against his better judgment. Kremeth turned to look at the two frozen kids and then felt like rolling his eyes. Both his disciples were paralyzed just from dragon roars. "Tch, younglings," Kremeth said in the most demeaning way possible. Kaboom! The house rattled once more, and this time around the thunder strike was followed by another attack as several dragon breaths collided against the barrier of the house. Max, although paralyzed, could see Kremeth's eyes twitching as he saw the facade of the old bent-over turtle be destroyed right in front of his eyes. "Keep the fucking volume down, you filthy lizards," Kremeth shouted as his primal voice boomed throughout the dungeon. His voice was so strong that it even broke Max and Sebastian free from their paralysis as the duo buckled to their knees and gasped. Kremeth straightened his back with a huge pop sound and began stretching his body as he balled his fists and chanted some sort of mantra. Slowly his body started to become larger and larger as muscle definition that was previously missing became evident. 20 seconds later, Kremeth was at the peak physique possible for any warrior as he looked like a pile of muscles and skin with absolutely zero fat whatsoever. Veins popped up at every corner of his skin with battle scars glistening almost all over his body, a proof of all the ordeals he had been through throughout his life. Kremeth retrieved a glistening black ancient armor from his inventory with blue runes carved all over it in a language that Max did not understand. Kremeth equipped the armor and continued to suit up with auxiliary equipment of the same set like the leg guards, the arm guards, the shoulder pads, the neck guard and the helmet until he looked like an ancient turtle warrior and nothing like an old coward. "Now children, in the way of the coward, what I am about to do is the absolute last resort. It is disgraceful that the situation has deteriorated to this point, but in this case nothing can be done. I have long suspected that this day might come, and hence have been preparing for it for the last 800 years. So here is the cowardly lesson of the day. Fighting is the last resort, but if you must fight, prepare for it for 800 years. Kremeth said as he walked out towards the cave entrance and deactivated the protection barrier. Kremeth stood before dozens of powerful dragons floating in the sky as he quickly scanned the entire sky, making eye contact with every single dragon, until locking eyes with the Tier 7 dragon. Countless inspection spells fell over Kremeth's body, but not a single dragon was able to gather even a smallest amount of intel on the old turtle, a fact that unnerved the group a little. "Lo, turtle, do you wish to oppose the mighty dragons?" The Tier 7 dragon Jornamfar said, giving Kremeth the chance to escape. "You are all mothers, every one of you here understands the pain of losing a child. For the sake of your own morality, let the Dragon Queen's baby live," Kremeth said, trying to convince the bunch of dragons to not follow through on the selfish system quest. "HMPF, let her child be born and then what? Become slaves of the Black Dragon clan for eternity. Her child will be born with immortal veins, its rise would be unstoppable. It's because we are all mothers hoping to raise the next Dragon King that we must kill her baby today. Because which child amongst ours can compete with her bloodline? While I may have played the second choice to Rhea all my life, my son will not play second fiddle to hers." Jornamfar said as the other dragon mothers agreed. Jornamfar began to burn her divine essence as she prepared to use a divine fireblast onto Kremeth, as the old turtle also began burning through his divine essence, preparing a spell unknown. Dragon Inferno, a Tier 7 spell capable of burning a hole through an entire moon-like planet from end to end, was shot towards Kremeth, as the plant life below the spell instantly vaporized from the heat of the attack despite the attack being in the form of a concentrated beam. "Very well, don't say I did not warn you," Kremeth said as he countered the incoming attack using a spatial spell of his own. Space Buster, a spatial portal opened midway between Kremeth and Jornamfar as the entire attack of Jornamfar was swallowed whole by the spell before a second portal opening right in front of her head, sending the attack straight back at her. Roar! Jornamfar instinctively used Harden, a moment before the spell collided with her body as she increased the defense of her scales by a bit. 230, 340 Jornumfar's HP bar was reduced by a whopping 40% as the dragon was knocked out of the sky and forced to crash on the ground below. Max, who was watching this fight progress, hiding behind the edge of Kremeth's house, was utterly shocked. Space Buster was his brother's attack spell, albeit it was less powerful than the version used by Kremeth. The more and more he got to know Kremeth, the more he felt like had Kremeth not been a coward he would be a warrior exactly like his brother. Kremeth, who noticed Max peeking, said, "Look carefully, boy, for today I show you the true might of a divine Astra. /////A/N." This bonus chapter is sponsored by the lovely patron, _Shoker. Please thank him in the comments for this one ////. Chapter 156 True Mayhem. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let me show you the power of a real Astra. Kremeth said as he pulled out the small device that he had previously found from amongst the pile of junk in his house. It was a small device that looked like it had a button on it, and when Kremeth pressed it, strong typhonic level winds started blowing out of nowhere in the dungeon. Except Kremeth's hut, which was surprisingly built aerodynamically and in such a location that it was unaffected from the storm outside, everything else was swept by the torrential winds. Trees, thousands of years old, were uprooted from the soil they were planted in, and even Tier 6 dragons struggled to maintain their position in the air without being swept away by the winds. It was at this moment that Kremeth planted his feet firmly into the ground as his body began glowing with a blue hue. "Veu Astra, the weapon of Wind God," exclaimed Drax in Max's mind. The old AI knew exactly what weapon Kremeth was using. It was the Veu Astra. The wind counterpart of the Agni Astra that Max used, a weapon forged from the soul of the primordial god of wind, a Tier 8 weapon in its entirety. The dragons tried to take aim at Kremeth and some even tried to hit him with a dragon breath attack, however, it was to no avail. The winds were too strong for them to take aim. Max could see Kremeth's energy level rising as the runes on his armor became brighter and brighter until Max could no longer see Kremeth through his naked eye, as looking at his lustrous body would blind him. It was at this moment that Max heard Kremeth's powerful voice boom throughout the dungeon as he said, "Destructive move. Wind God's Fury." The second Drax said this, a gust of wind blew towards Max with such strength that Max was thrown back into the house wall as he slammed into it feeling completely winded. Fa. Max struggled to breathe. He felt like his lungs were no longer strong enough to suck in a breath of air from the surroundings. For the first time in his life Max felt his lung muscles being strained, and it was an extremely scary feeling for him, as even after a good 1 minute of struggling he could not pull in a single breath of air. Max felt the effects of oxygen deprivation soon after as black spots began dancing in his vision, although if Max tried hard enough he could hold his breath for 6.7 minutes if he was prepared for it, but after being winded by being slammed into the wall and having no previous preparation whatsoever, Max could no longer hold his breath. Max fell down on his knees and tried to conserve as much air as possible as he felt his lung and chest muscles vibrate violently from overexertion. It was at that moment that suddenly the storm outside quietened down as air returned to Max's lungs. Panting Max breathed air much to the relief of his body, as even when panting and struggling he still crawled to the cave entrance to try and see what was going on outside. When Max reached the entrance, he only saw the hunched old Kremeth, who stood at the entrance wearing an oversized armor and helmet as he looked serenely at the destruction he had just caused. When he noticed Max, the turtle said, "Those torrential winds, it took me 5 years to collect windstones and make one wind-powered formation that could be remotely activated. LO1 formation released winds capable of generating one small storm. Over the last 800 years, I made 160 such formations that I activated 20 at once using this small remote here today. Although there is air all around us, the ease of controlling turbulent air with the Veu Astra is more easy than manipulating still air. Once the storm had brewed, and the winds were violent enough, it was only the matter of using the destructive Tier 7 skill Wind God's Fury, with the 100x power amplification of the Veu Astra for wind-based skills, it reached tier 8 strength levels. The poor dragons at our doorstep never stood a chance, my boy, and that's the only reason I came out to fight in the first place. Because rule number 1 and the most important rule of being a coward is to never start a fight you can't finish. Max heard Kremitha's words loud and clear, as he peeked beyond the turtle to take a look at the dragons. The dragons were a mighty race in Max's mind, beings with scales so thick that even the most powerful arrows could not pierce. A race blessed with such an abnormally high defense, stamina and mana stat that they dared to look at the angel race as an equal. However, Max's worldview was completely shattered today when he saw the condition of the dragons after Kremitha's attack. Irrespective of their tier, from the strongest to weakest, they were all reduced to nothing but mushed meat and flesh with broken bones. For as far as the naked eye could see, there was not a single opponent left alive, not a single dragon still floating in the air or a single tree still rooted on the ground. However, that was not even the most horrifying part, as the true horrifying part was that not a single corpse was recognizable in the aftermath, with bones, flesh, internal organs and scales scattered all across the plain. White, red, blue, yellow, black, it did not matter what race the dragon was from, they were all deader than dead, with their insides indifferentiable. This is the true power of an Astra kid, and while mine is only a tier 8 treasure, yours is a tier 9 one in its entirety. If you master its power, one day you can do this too. Kremith said as Max felt his heart do a barrel roll hearing these words. One day he could do it too. Chapter 157, The Universal Queen's True Colors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kremith walked back with heavy legs into the cave as Rhea gave him a look of respect that he well deserved. I'm getting too old for this, Kremith said as he undid his armor and stored it back into his inventory before sliding back onto his chair. There were still 5 minutes left before the system quest ended, and Max assumed that it would coincide with the time that the baby was born. When only 3 minutes were left till the system quest ended, the first limb of the dragon kid finally popped free from the egg. Max noticed a cute little black leg popping out of the dragon egg, but for some reason it was covered in blood. Initially Max thought that even human babies were covered in blood upon birth, but then he looked at the panic attack that Rhea was having and realized that it was not the case for dragons. The scent of blood wasped into Max's nose as he instinctively bared his fangs a little. It was the sweetest scent of blood that Max had ever smelled. It emitted a rich aroma that made Max feel like he had been hungry for ages now. Max tried extremely hard to stop his primal instincts to force him to have a bite, as he barely managed to stop the trickle of drool to escape his lips. Max had gotten much better controlling his primal urges over the months. However, had this been 6 months ago, he would have probably already jumped to devour the baby alive and be killed by Rhea for trying. Soon, the second limb popped out, this time a golden-colored tail, but it was visibly damaged and bleeding as if the tender baby flesh was cut open by sharp knives. It should not be bleeding so much, what's happening to my poor baby? Rhea said, her motherly instincts driving her insane watching her child in pain and suffering. Kremith knew exactly what was going on. It was the Universal Queen's play. Although there was no clear evidence of foul play, Kremith knew it was the all-controlling AI playing some tricks behind the scenes. Breaking your neutrality over a little baby, how magnanimous, Kremith thought as he laughed at the Queen's petty attempt at a baby's life. While Kremith was not completely sure, he disliked the Universal Queen installing an AI inside all gods upon ascending to tier 6. The new gods all grew with the Universal Queen installed AI inside of them, and while there were no vocal instances of any good reporting foul play, Kremith knew very well that should there be a foul play, no god would be left alive to report it. Having ascended to godhood before the era of the Universal Queen, Kremith was one of the last gods to not have an Universal Queen-induced AI monitoring his every thought and action. A privacy which was a luxury not afforded to the new gods. Finally, as the baby's head popped out, Rhea saw its delicate eyes look into hers as she felt a boundless love and bond for the baby in that second. However, even its head was covered in injuries as Max suspected that it was losing HP every second. Once its head was out, Rhea carefully tore the rest of the egg away from around its body as she held the baby up close to her nose. "Congratulations, she's a girl," said Kremeth as his first glance went towards its sexual organs instead of its welfare. The baby was black through and through, except for her tail which was golden in color. She was an especially beautiful dragon baby with regal features, as it did not cry or cringe despite having multiple cuts on its body but instead snuggled up lovingly to her mother. System notification. Dragon Queen Rhea has interrupted the natural order of things and forcefully removed the abomination from its shell. As a penalty for doing so, the heart of the child will be stopped and its birth would be classified as unsuccessful, hence not protected under system laws. The system notification told Rhea that her baby's heart would stop and immediately afterwards the baby's eyes closed shut. "Baby?" Rhea asked as she gently shook her, trying to see if it opened its eyes but it was to no avail. The expression on Rhea's face turned from shock to blank to anger to pure madness in a matter of 5 seconds. "I will fucking tear this universe down, you bitch. What have you done to my baby? Give me back my child, this goes against the universe's doctrines." Rhea shouted in absolute madness. She was ready to go to war with the universe right this second as her grief seemed inconsolable. The baby had been delivered safely. The universal laws should have made it so that the queen must acknowledge its birth and give it the acknowledgement of a player, but for some reason it did not. The universal queen was fair. As fair as limits allowed her to be. She was like the judge, jury and executioner of the universe combined, and as the judge she could try and punish the citizens from the smallest to biggest crimes. While she could not charge an innocent for a crime it did not commit, or make false charges, because her governing laws prevented her from doing so, she could make the punishments harsher on criminals it did not like. Just like on Earth the punishment for breaking a street light varied from a small fine to being jailed for 3 years depending on the judge's mood, the same applied to the Universal Queen as well. Just like how 99% of street light breaking cases never went to court and most that did came out with a small fine, the crime of meddling with a natural birth was punishable by the laws of the universe. Irrespective of the race, interfering with childbirth was punishable by universal law, and hence by law the Universal Queen was allowed to punish her. However, for the punishment to be the life of her baby, was the most petty thing done by the Universal Queen ever. Of course the Universal Queen had her reasons to do so, because while it could not admit it, the Universal Queen was actually afraid of a tier 0 baby, because upon birth, its mana stat was a fucking infinity. //////n. This bonus chapter is for hitting the GT target, good job everyone. /////. Chapter 158 Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "And it's dead. Well, it was a good 2 seconds while it lasted," Kremeth said as he wished the baby good riddance. Max did not know why but he felt very sad seeing the dragon baby die the way that it did. He could sympathize with Mother Rhea's pain, and while he was no genius on what politics were played behind the scenes, he could see that the shell of the egg was what caused the baby its injuries. The shell for some reason was unnaturally hard, which caused the baby to be cut and bruised as it struggled to get out. What Max did not know was that it was the Universal Queen who pulled the strings to make the egg shell extra hard without anyone figuring it out. When Max glanced at Sebastian, the man was rubbing his belly like he was pregnant and crying real tears. Max's eyebrows twitched seeing his behavior. He knew the obsession that Sebastian had with his baby dragon egg, and this scene here today was sure to leave a deep impact on the loving Sebastian. "I'm wowie for your loss, Mama," Sebastian said in an incomprehensible voice as his tears streamed down his cheeks and hit the floor. Rhea could not give 2 fucks about Sebastian's sympathy as her eyes glanced desperately towards Kremeth as for the first time in her majestic existence the Dragon Queen prostrated herself before a living being as she prostrated herself before Kremeth and said, "Save my child, old hermit, I beg of you to do so." This was extremely difficult for Rhea to do. The pride of the dragon race did not allow it to bow before anyone. A dragon would rather die than kneel, and she was not even a normal dragon, but the queen of all dragons. Ria's request would have moved any man with a heart, however, the old coward was a calculative man. He did not wish to save the baby if there was nothing in it for himself. Please. Ria said, her voice cracking and choking. She had reached her breaking point. It was either her baby getting saved at this second or her mind turning dark forever. In return for me helping you save your child, I need 2 favors from the Dragon Queen that you cannot deny. Swear it by a system contract and I will try my best to save it. Kremeth said, throwing a glimmer of hope to the Wailing Queen. Ria's eyes glimmered with hope. She immediately swore, I swear by my soul with the Universal Queen as my witness that should my baby be saved, I will owe Kremeth the immortal 2 favors that I cannot deny. The soul oath was placed, and Kremeth hummed deeply. Max, who was judging Kremeth's character for being a shameless man who did not help a wailing mother despite having the means to do so, was staring at the old turtle with the, "You're a bastard" eyes when Kremeth said, "All right, time for you to get to work, kid, and fast." Max looked around the room as he wondered who Kremeth was pointing at until he finally realized that it was him. Me. Him. Max and Ria asked at once as Kremeth nodded to affirm them both that yes, it was indeed Max who needed to save the baby. The brain of a dragon is working for about 2 minutes after its heart stops, and it's the first organ to die, so we have about 40 seconds left until its brain dead, after which it's game over. But with your blood manipulation ability, even with its heart not working we can keep the blood inside its body pumping, even with its heart dead. Kremeth said as Max's eyes widened in disbelief. He had not even thought about this method to keep the baby alive. Get your ass to work, boy. Or else, sob, please save my child, I.B. Ria started her sentence in anger, but quickly broke down mid-sentence as she realized she had no leverage over Max while the other party had the ability to save her child. Before the Dragon Queen begged him, however, Max quickly got near the baby's body and began concentrating on its blood vessels inside as he said, "Don't worry, ma'am, even if it cripples me, I'll do my best to save your child." Max wanted to save the baby, not because of any potential gains, not because of any favors, but because his heart genuinely ached to see a cute child die at childbirth when it could have been saved. Max got near the baby, and the smell of blood wasped strongly into his nostrils as his primal side urged to take over. However, Max not only repressed that urge down this time, but rather cracked down on it with anger as he gained complete control over his body with a clear mind in doing so. Max put his hand on the dead baby's chest, as he felt the mass of blood in his heart, unmoving and still as he began to pump it through the arteries using his skill, blood manipulation. The first 10 seconds Max had no idea of how much force he needed to exert for the blood coming through the heart to undergo a full cycle. But when the blood being pumped was not coming back into the heart through the veins, he knew he needed to go harder. Max progressively increased the intensity with which he pumped the blood, as beads of sweat began forming on his forehead. He had never been more focused on a job as he was focused today, as he felt every single capillary inside the baby's body getting the blood that it needed. Soon, the first blood came back to the heart via the veins as Max realized that he could probably increase the tempo just a little bit more for the baby's body to experience a normal blood pressure. Max's stamina was being drained like crazy, his bar was down 5% in just 20 seconds of pumping effort. However, Max did not even care about it for the moment as his full focus was on saving the child. In the entire universe, the only race with the ability of performing blood manipulation was Max's primordial vampire bloodline, and since he was the only primordial vampire surviving, it could be said that fate was at play with him being in the same room as Ria and her baby at childbirth, because without him present, even a Tier 8 immortal did not have the ability to save the baby. As Max completed the 20th blood cycle, he realized that the baby also needed air. The blood was getting thicker and thicker and minusculely harder to pump after every cycle, a problem that he was not sure of how to solve. Chapter 159 Max doing his best. You are listening at novelfull.audio. PANDA.NOV1 Air. It needs air. Max said, as Kremeth calmly patted his back and said, if it needs air, then you breathe air into its mouth. Max wished he was back on Earth at this moment because Earth had this beautiful medical machine that could help sustain the body in case of a lung failure. But since there was no such device available in Kremeth's cave, Max had to take a deep breath through his mouth and blow air into the baby's mouth, all the while continuing to focus on the blood manipulation. As Max blew into the baby's lungs, he soon realized that it took every ounce of pressure that his Tier 2 lungs could produce to fill up barely 50% of the Tier 0 dragon baby's lungs, while sucking the air out after every 2 blood cycles was even harder. Max began being drenched in sweat from head to toe as he continued the process of blowing air into the baby's lungs, providing it with a blood flow and removing the air from its lungs after 2 cycles before blowing fresh air in back again. Max was a living, moving ventilator for the baby who was burning through his own stamina bar like it was a paper of fire to somehow try and revive the kid. Kremeth, who was monitoring the situation, closely smiled after about 2 minutes of Max working extremely hard as he started to notice that the baby's lungs started to take in and exhale small amounts of air without Max's help, which meant that the subconscious instinct of survival had started to kick back in. Kremeth also noticed that small amount of blood was oozing out of the cuts and bruises the child had, and while Max should do better with his blood manipulation skill such that the baby should not bleed, Kremeth could see that Max was already doing his best and asking for anything more from him was just not possible. For the dragon child to survive, it was imperative that the blood loss needed to be stopped at once, hence Kremeth decided to call on Rhea for help. "You, Dragon Kid's mother, heal the child's wounds, come on chop chop," Kremeth ordered Rhea while clapping his flappy turtle hands, as in her delirious state of mind the Dragon Queen did not even care what she was called as she began to tenderly close all the wounds on her child's body using a high-level healing spell. As Rhea closed the dragon baby's wounds, the heal spell slowly began to heal the baby's internal wounds too, as slowly but surely the baby's body was returning to peak state. Kaboom! Oh fuck off! Lightning struck on Kremeth's house once more, and with the barrier protecting his house prior to the childbirth disabled, the lightning threatened to hit his cave directly. With a wave of his hand, however, Kremeth neutralized the incoming attack before it ever hit his humble abode, as he treated divine retribution as nothing but a minor inconvenience. The Universal Queen was watching, and while she did not like the way the fate threads were changing, there were no laws broken and nothing for her to intervene on anymore, as bound by the rules she was created with there was nothing that she could do but to watch idly as the future disruptor of the universe was being revived. Gah! Roar! A small roar escaped the baby's mouth as it opened its eyes once again, much to the delight of Rhea and Sebastian, who bursted into tears to see it open its eyes once more. The baby was alive and conscious once more. With it being completely capable of breathing on its own now, however, its heart was still not functioning as intended, with its life support being Max's blood manipulation. Hand, A.N0vel.com, the baby peered straight into Max's eyes, who felt his heart warm up looking into its clear black eyes. No words were spoken, but the baby could feel Max's intense emotion of saving its life as Max left a deep imprint on its heart in this very moment. Soon, Max's legs began to tremble as standing became a struggle for him. His stamina bar had dropped below 20% and soon he was going to see effects of stamina deficiency impair his movement, as it was at this moment that Rhea noticed the kid's low stamina bar as she was jolted into action. Max looked as pale as a white sheet of paper, drenched in sweat from head to toe as his body muscles spasmed and ached from the fast burnout of stamina. The Dragon Queen turned into a human form, as she retrieved a max-level stamina regeneration potion from her inventory and tenderly brought it to Max's lips as Max slowly consumed the liquid being poured into his mouth as he felt an electric shock run through his body with his stamina starting to regenerate fast. The potion Max was just consuming was one of the highest purity stamina regeneration potions available in the universe, each bottle costing upwards of 10 billion gold coins, yet none of it mattered at the moment, neither to him or to Rhea, as the only goal was to save the baby. Feeling like he had been injected with 70 injections of adrenaline at once, Max continued his hard work with renewed energy, as at this moment finally Kremeth decided to take personal action. "Alright, this ought to hurt," Kremeth said, as listening to his words the baby innocently gazed into its mother's eyes in fear of what was going to happen next, before looking into Max's eyes for affirmation. "Don't worry little one, we will save you," Max said as the young dragon seemed to be reassured hearing his voice as it smiled at him. Coming closer to the child, Kremeth asked Max to increase the baby's blood pressure to twice the level of what it was now, before stopping the blood manipulation skill and removing his hands from over its body to allow Kremeth to do his work. Trusting the old turtle, Max did exactly what was told before moving away to give the turtle some space to work. It was all into the old turtle's hands now. // bonus chapter for hitting the PS target. Good job everyone. Let's keep up the chase to reach top 10 in GT rankings. I know we can do it guys. Let's close down the gap to number 10 and reach our goal before the clock changes to the new year on January 1st, // Chapter 160 Miracle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If you asked Odin, how would he describe Kremeth the coward in one word, he would have said, cold. Kremeth the coward for a feared opponent because he had perfect control over his emotions. Fear, anger, pride, lust, nothing worked on the man as he fought every battle at his own pace, never pushing for an attack even when his side was winning, never waiting a second to retreat if he saw the tides turning. One could simply not manipulate Kremeth into doing something he did not wish to do, which was the reason why he was such a formidable opponent. Kremeth knew that Rhea must have lightning-based skills in her vast arsenal of attack spells, but he knew that she did not have the guts to blast the child's heart with lightning-based attacks at the cost of hurting it, but Kremeth had no such reservations. The second Max moved his hands, Kremeth placed his finger straight over the child's heart and used the move, Thunder Shock. Bzzz, roarer, the dragon baby wailed in pain from Kremeth's attack as Rhea tried to grab Kremeth's hand to stop immediately before stopping herself midway. Thundershock was a tier 2 attack, and although what Kremeth used was a precisely controlled version of the attack, it was too much to take for the body of a baby whose scales had not been formed yet. The black skin over its heart looked wrinkled post the attack as the smell of burning flesh filled the entire room. Unfortunately, the first attempt did not work, as the baby's heart did not start beating in of itself as Kremeth adjusted his strength, increasing it a tad bit before administering the second shock. Thunder Shock, RAAWWRRR, the baby wailed even more, kicking and flailing its limbs while swiping its tail. It wanted to bite Kremeth, but did not have the strength to escape the weight of the turtle's single finger. The smell of blood once again wasped into a tired Max's nostril as following the scent he could see the Dragon Queen, now in her human form with nails digging into her own flesh, causing a bit of her blood to trickle down her arm. Damn it, I'll go mad, Max thought as the smell of her dragon blood made his mind go numb from bloodlust as he wanted to pounce on her flesh right this instant. Unfortunately, the second attempt to resuscitate the baby's heart was also a failure, and now without Max pumping its blood, the baby started to lose consciousness fast. Alright, it's do or die time, Kremeth said as Rhea screamed in horror. The attack Kremeth was now preparing would toast the baby's internal organs in her opinion as she tried to desperately stop Kremeth. Sit. Kremeth said as his aura washed across the room, forcing even the Dragon Queen to sit for an instant, while knocking Max and Sebastian flat on the ground. Thunder Shock, Kremeth fearlessly administered the third shock, and now the baby's belly was visibly burnt despite it being already black in color as the pungent smell of charred flesh permeated throughout the room. My baby! Rhea cried, as she felt like gouging Kremeth's eyes out this instant but stopped herself in her tracks as a miracle finally occurred. Under Kremeth's third and most powerful shock, the baby's heart finally revived itself as it started to beat slowly. Chain Heal, Max wasted no time in casting a healing spell the second he felt movement inside the baby's heart, as even at the cost of his own HP he tried to heal the dragon baby. After Max's help, the baby's heartbeat grew a little stronger as Rhea soon followed suit and casted healing spells on the baby. Everyone ignored Kremeth as the baby's heartbeat grew stronger and stronger, as while nobody wanted to admit it, they all knew that only one as cold as him could have had the guts to administer the third and most powerful Thunder Shock. Soon, the baby started to cry once again, this time because of all the pain it was in, as the Universal Queen finally had no choice but to recognize its birth into the world and provide it the protection that every single universal citizen enjoyed as per the universal laws. System notification. Congratulations! You have given birth to a baby girl, please give it a temporary name. A system notification informed Rhea of her child's successful birth as the Queen of Dragons wept in joy hugging her child. The baby girl snuggled cozily to her mother while throwing nasty glances at the old turtle who had tortured her moments ago as Rhea kept healing her injuries. Miracle that I name her Miracle, she's my miracle, said Rhea as the system acknowledged her choice and assigned the temporary name Miracle to the dragon baby. Oh, it's too much joy for me to handle, Sebastian said as he wiped the snot off his face and tried to pull in Max for a hug, but was brutally rejected. Max also had a foolish grin on his face as he inspected the baby's stats. XX. Basic information, name. Miracle, temporary, race. Black, golden dragon, class. None, alignment. Neutral, languages. Draconic, titles. None, level. 0, 53%, tier. 0, system remark. The baby child of the Golden Dragon King and the Black Dragon Queen, born with arguably the best genetics in the universe. Stats, mana. A/A. Health. 450 out of 1200, stamina. 1000, attributes, strength. 60 dexterity. 20 agility. 15 constitution. 120 intelligence. 90 endurance. 70 unassigned AP. 0 Max's mind blanked out watching the baby's stats. This baby was a freak of nature, having stats equivalent to level 25 Max while being level 0. But that was not the most shocking part about the baby. The most shocking part about the baby was its mana stat. Max rubbed his eyes twice when he saw the mana stat, which he was used to seeing at the lowest low of 0 for himself. As for Miracle, the miracle child, the stat was an unbelievable infinity. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91 through Patreon. Please thank him in the comments for this one. //